Hello, it's Bridget Pennington again. My second career profile is on the job or career of an LMFT, which is a licensed marriage and family therapist. I contacted a friend of mine named Karen Stone, who has this career. She is now in private practice. Her website is www.karenstonelmft.com. The address is 860 Hebron Parkway, Suite 803, Louisville, Texas 75057. And the phone number is 214-454-9672. She also has an email address at karen.stone.lmft@gmail.com. I asked her about the working environment, and since she is now in private practice, the organization is small. Right now, her hours, schedule, and flexibility are really abnormal, as she's trying to complete hours that would make her independent of a supervisor. When you first get your licensing, you have at the end of your name LMFTA, and that A you eventually get rid of after you complete a certain amount of hours under a supervisor. Just like when we will do an internship, we have to have so many hours completed of an internship. You have to have so many hours supervised, and then you get that A taken off your name and you're just LMFT. Right now she's working on average 12 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week. That doesn't have to be the norm. She's doing that right now because she's wanting to finish that those hours so that she can get that A off her name and no longer be supervised. So basically, you can set your own schedule, and your flexibility depends on you and what your desired schedule is. She said when you work for an agency or you work for someone else, there's not a lot of independence, as office space may be limited and hours can be dependent on other therapists and or the head of the organization. She did work at an agency or a counseling center where there were limited number of offices and they were small, and so she had to schedule around other therapists when certain offices were available. This field / career can be family friendly in that you can set your own schedule. And you can do that. You can say, I'm not going to work weekends, or I'm only going to work these days during the week so that I can be at the baseball games for my kids on these days, or whatever it is. But when you limit your schedule that way, you may not be available to a lot of people. You're going to limit your clientele. In Karen's experience, she says that it's hard to fill up afternoons, that most people want morning or evening appointments or even weekends because most people are working. So, if she said, I'm not going to do the late hours anymore, that would be fine, but that would cut back on her income. So when you limit your schedule, you limit your clientele, and when you limit your clientele, you limit your income ultimately. We talked about typical stressors, and they include what's called secondhand trauma, which means sometimes clients' issues can trigger old wounds in the therapist. So if you're working with somebody and something that they're trying to work through triggers something that's unresolved in you, then you're going to have to work through your personal issues, and it just can make your emotional health suffer if you don't work through those, and then sessions with that client can, of course, be more difficult. Which brings us to another stressor is self-care. You have to take care of yourself emotionally in this career because you're taking on a lot of other people's issues, and you have to be really clear about boundaries with yourself. when handling the emotional and mental well-being of several clients, emotional boundaries are essential, but sometimes over-empathizing is inevitable. Taking proper care of yourself, of your own emotional state, requires time and work, and that can be stressful. There's also, if you're in private practice, there's the stress of fees, rent, continuing education costs, liability insurance, advertising, and that's just to name a few. Talked about typical benefits. One of the benefits of private practice is that you can set your own fees. As far as health insurance, professional liability insurance, retirement, Social Security, taxes, and rent, you're on your own. All the benefits that you would typically see provided with other professions as perks are not in this environment of private practice because you're essentially self-employed. She said common job tasks include meeting with clients for therapy sessions, maintaining case notes, keeping up with continuing education units, marketing and networking, billing, insurance management if you choose to accept insurance. She does not, but some people do. Communication and reporting with third parties. For instance, there are some juveniles who are on probation, and she would have to report to probation officers or the state. In some cases, there's people you report to their bishop. Maybe they're in therapy and the church is paying for part of it. Whatever third parties are involved, you have to report to them. You have to do assessments, and then most importantly, self-care if you want to maintain your sanity, I guess. Educational requirements. To practice marriage and family therapy, a bachelor's and master's degrees are the minimum requirement. There are therapists who have PhDs as well, and many other certifications for specialized training. They get training in specialized areas to treat specific problems like PTSD or addictions. And then there's really specific addictions that you can be certified for a lot of different specialties. As far as salary goes in this field, it's hard to determine yearly salary because it just depends on how you set up your schedule. So she said mainly people talk about it as by the hour, how much people charge by the hour. So she said starting salary range would be anywhere from $50 to $75 an hour, and an experienced salary might be $100 to $150 an hour. Again, my source was Karen Stone, who has a lot of letters behind her name. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist and also a licensed chemical dependency counselor, as well as she specializes in some other things, PTSD and different therapies. So that wraps up this profile. Thank you very much.